Hey guys, you're back here with another episode of Real Estate Rubdown with Shannon Robnett. I have Adam Fleck here with me. Adam, tell me a little bit about who you are, where you come from, what your goals are. Let's just find out who you are.
Hey Shannon, well thanks for inviting me to do this. This is the first time I've been on any kind of real estate podcast in general. So this is
Well, great.
new for me too. Um, and so as far as my personal real estate journey, I started looking into it when I was about 18, 19. My dad had told me that one of his big regrets has been not making his money work for him. So we started going to all the free conferences. This was back 2009, 2008. I mean, this is right in the middle of the recession.
Mm-hmm.
And just like we were talking a little before we started recording, was the people saying, "Oh, real estate's terrible time to
Right.
invest. It's bad to invest in real estate because the market had just crashed."
Yep.
Well, the Great Recession is a Great Recession for a reason. It doesn't happen all the time, but
Correct.
so I was trying to just learn everything and anything I could. I got some really good advice, got some really bad advice, and just kind of picked my way through it, and was able to, long story short, purchase a foreclosure in 2011. That's what really got me started.
Okay.
My what I call my 8-year live-in flip. um, you know, but it was just a piece of junk house. Little two bedroom, one bath, 800 square feet. But in the suburbs of Portland, with a market that had huge appreciation, I bought this place for $60,000.
Right. Nice
Living at home.
purchase.
Oh well, I joined my local real estate investors association, the local RIA, there in Portland, and hey, does this look like a good deal? And everyone was like, it looks all right. But again, in 2011, the market was pretty much at the bottom, and I got lucky, but the market was pretty much at the bottom. So there were these kind of foreclosures all over the place. You could find foreclosures for 200,000, 100,000, or 100, but 150 to 300,000 that you could flip. There were so many flips going on in the Portland market back then, and so people looked at this and going, it's too small, it's kind of out of the way, it needs a lot of work, and it didn't make sense for anybody else. And so but I just needed something. I knew I wanted to get into something, and I'm a big fan of Bigger Pockets. That's kind of when I found Bigger Pockets, kind of when it was founded, I think. 2009 is when my account started. And Brandon Turner always talks about how, just get started somehow. And I was like, I just need to buy a house. And
I couldn't agree with that more because, there's so many people that come to the place you were at where you knew you had to do something, but then they back away from that edge. They don't do anything. So,
but I was also in a position where I could take the risk. I was 23. I was living at home. I was still going to college. I was working part-time. I was in a good spot with good credit from some of the advice that I had gotten from some of those free conferences, that I and I had my folks backing me. I was living at home, so I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't paying for food. I wasn't paying for a lot of other things that you would have if I would have been doing the traditional college thing. So I was living at home when I was going to college. I wasn't making that much money, but I was playing in a band, so like I had some kind of free money that I wasn't claiming to the IRS.
This isn't the place to talk about things you haven't claimed on your taxes. I'll just tell you that right now.
Again, I was, I figured I was 21. We're playing little bar gigs. It's not like we really made that much, but I wasn't making a lot, but I also wasn't spending a lot either. And again, another Warren Buffett quote is, not just to get rich slow, but there's two ways to be rich. You can either make a lot of money or not spend any.
Right.
And so I was in the not spend much. So all the way through the next 8 years when I was living in this little divey house while I was working on it, while I was fixing it, my mortgage was only $450.
Right.
And so I was saving a lot of money in that time frame, and I was kind of bouncing around to jobs and trying out different careers. I did everything from, uh, I worked for an alcohol marketing company. I worked for a moving company. I worked
Wow.
for oil field. I was, um, uh, I started my own company there. That failed. In the beer industry. Then I got in the semiconductor industry. Uh,
So fast forward, you've got this house, you're fixing it up, you're living in one side. Is that right? It was a duplex, or was it just a
it
one?
was just single family, so it
Okay.
wasn't. The only way I made money on this house was from appreciation,
Okay.
and some of it was forced appreciation because I kept it standing. I literally had the house was so bad I had a contractor when I first bought it. I was trying to get estimates, seeing like, hey, where should I start with this place? Because again, I had done some home improvement stuff with my dad growing up, but nothing as intense as this house needed. And this contractor straight up told me the best thing you can do to this house is a match
Yeah.
and just collect the insurance money. And back in 2011, all these contractors were so starving for work.
Work.
As he said, I'll build you a brand new house on this lot for $80 a square foot. And you got to figure the Portland market stuff was a little more expensive, but yeah, it was. That's how bad that place was. So fast forward to only a couple years ago, I wanted to get out of that market. I was looking to take some of that equity from that property, and reinvest it, make that money work for me.
Right.
Uh, and I started looking at other places. We talked a little bit before the podcast about, um, you know, kind of being a small fish in a huge pond. The Portland market was great. You can still make money in it, but you just need to have money first. And I
Right.
wasn't at that point. I didn't have a lot of the connections. I was starting to get them,
Right.
starting to network, but there's a really, really steep learning curve
That
at
I will agree with you on that. There's a
first.
steep learning curve.
But that's actually a good thing. So some of
Yeah.
the nomenclature, when you talk about a steep learning curve, that means it's short time frame.
Yep.
And so once I refied that house in Portland and was able to actually invest in Boise in 2019. Yeah, literally a year ago.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden I have, I bought a triplex.
Okay.
Had a great deal. It was on the MLS. Turned it into a great deal. Didn't look like great on paper.
Right.
It was about a 4.5 cap, and now it's a 9 cap. So,
And what'd you do? What'd you do to do that? I mean, here's something that was on the market for a little bit of time, if I remember the story correctly.
it it was right about average as far as time on market. I think it was on the market for 2-3 months.
Yeah, but nowadays, I mean, we are a year later, and there's nothing on the market. So it had some market time on it. But what did you see in it that let you know that you could turn that around and make some good money with
Naivety. It was. I mean,
it? You know what? I can vouch for you on that. I've got a lot of deals that had I known, probably we would have done, but actually turned out okay once you got through them.
well, and that goes back to just doing something. I knew I had to get over that hump of, I was just this, hey, I have my primary residence, but I'm not like an investor. Once I had a triplex, I can say, hey, I'm an investor. I have more than one unit. Even if it isn't a great deal, when I go to talk to folks like yourself, who's done, like 1 million units and all these things, been in it for 30 years, you all of a sudden, now I'm not just, looking for a handout, or I'm not just another person who's just learning. I've actually done something, and
Right.
beyond just, owning a house. I mean, if, there's, we were talking earlier about, there's these large gaps between folks like myself, who's kind of just getting started, Jack, I have a butcher his last name, but Aduo, I think is how you
Right.
say it.
Yeah.
again,
And
apologize.
he's he's a sophisticated, syndicator.
Yeah, and
Um,
he's done deals in multiple states.
right.
Um,
But I
yourself.
think to come back to it, Adam, several of the things that you don't give yourself enough credit for is you actually did something knowing that movement was going to bring activity, and you did that something twice. So what I hear you say and not give yourself very much credit for is you took something that somebody would have burned down. They didn't see the value in it, but instead of get rich quick, you got rich slow because you were able to create value in there that then led to your second, third, and fourth purchase, or second, third, and fourth door all wrapped into one. And by doing something, time has been your friend. Naivety may have been your friend also. But at the end of the day, you now sit there with 4 doors, but that's not the end of the story.
Well, for sure. I'm not where I want to be yet. That I don't think anyone's where they want to be. I mean, how
What
do I?
happens to some of us is we get to a place where we're having too much fun doing it that we probably won't ever quit anyway.
Well, you, you said to me once, like, I've tried to retire 3 times, and I keep coming back to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
the what's that? Try to build a life you don't need to retire from.
exactly.
Um,
No, that's a very good point.
and uh, without getting too philosophical, I mean, I know this might be jumping ahead, but it's like um, you don't need uh, the whole idea of like retirement and have this like golden age where like finally like somewhere down the road I'll be happy if I only do X, Y, Z, and it's like
Right.
that's so uh, I don't know, short-sighted in
Passe.
my opinion. Like, I mean, I'm not as young as I used to be, but I'm only like in my 30s, so it's
Right.
not I'm not old either. Um, God forbid I'd be 40. That'd be really old, huh?
Hey, easy there, you young buck. So
Um,
Jason, you got this triplex, and you saw something in it that nobody else saw. You saw some value. Call it naivety, call it whatever you want. You were able to take that from a 4.5 cap to a 9 cap. That's no small feat, my friend.
well, uh, I think part of it was luck. I'd rather be lucky than good any day. Um,
Absolutely.
but there's but I did the analysis on it. I used the bigger pockets tools and stuff. They're really great. Um, and I knew it was good-ish, but it wasn't as good as some of the other stuff that was hitting the market that were fourplexes, or they were in better shape, or they were newer, or something like that. But the problem was I kept getting beat out by a bunch of cash buyers. I tried to go and get into a fourplex that was down here off of Brogan, south of town, south of the airport. Some of these new developments, and it's like, there was something that I could have gotten into, but someone comes in and offers less money but cash, so they took it, and it's like, okay, well,
Sure.
I don't have $500,000 in cash. I'm trying to finance, and so this triplex that I got was passed over because it didn't have quite the numbers as something else did. It was also near railroad tracks. Well, come to find out, that's the historic Boise Depot, so they don't run as often. It was old, but it was in decent shape. So, but it wasn't, because it was a triplex, you didn't have a lot of the owner occupieds going after it. It doesn't have a garage, so you didn't have people like that. It doesn't have a yard really, so it's kind of a unique little piece of property. And going back to some of the stuff that I've learned throughout my life is that when we had everybody going one way, and this is kind of that the
The road
blood of the
less
trees that we were
traveled.
talking about with Warren Buffett again, get greedy, whatever. Um, is everyone's going one way. It's like, find that other little thing that you can like diversify. That's a little off the beaten path that you can scoop up. My house in Portland was a decent deal, but it wasn't a great one. There were so many other great deals going on, and it just kind of got passed over because it wasn't going to be a quick flip. It wasn't going to be a huge money maker. So it's like, there's other ones that people that were serious about it, that were already kind of maybe where Jack is, or where you're at, that you guys were grabbing the great deals that were on the market, whereas me being small fish, I got to grab all this kind of stuff that's left over. But then there's still stuff that you have to kind of get a little creative and
But
see what you can do.
again, Adam, I can't say this enough about you. I mean, we've talked several times, and every time I come away with the understanding that you don't give yourself enough credit for just the activity that you did. I mean, you went into motion. You knew what needed to be done. You had about every handicap you could have against you. You were young. You didn't have a formal real estate background. You went to some conferences. You didn't have capital. You were, from your story, the only thing you had going for you is good credit, and you were in a band, right? And so, but the reality is, because you understood to do something, and by following through with doing something, you did great. Because, the reality is that it's just like, you like to reference Warren Buffett, and this isn't a quote, but he is always bought to hold. And if you get into a bad real estate deal, even when the market went south in 2008 and 2009, we saw tons of people giving away their houses because they bought it for $700 and now it was worth $300, and they didn't want to be upside down in it, so they were willing to give it back to the bank and take the black mark on their credit. But now today that house is worth $900.
Right.
So time and appreciation and depreciation and tax benefits cure almost all ails in real estate. Now, they're not going to cure everything, right? I mean, buying an outhouse in the middle of the woods and paying $1 million for it is probably, that's going to take you're not going to see that appreciate in your lifetime. But what I see you not give yourself enough credit for is you did something, and you did something, what I see is consistently. And so you've done that twice now. You've got those both under your belt, and now you've changed your mindset from, well, I've got to do something to kind of get the name of being a homeowner, and then I've got to do another activity to get the name of being a real estate investor. But now you're really starting to pick up steam.
Well, and that's where that learning curve happens, is that, once you get over that initial hump, that you can say, hey, no, I've got a couple doors. I've done this a little bit. And then from there, it's like, oh, okay, that opens up many, many more doors. Networking, like I've been doing like crazy here since I've been in Boise. And going to all these meetups, meeting folks like Sam, Martin, like we were talking about. I got lucky. Again, I'd rather be lucky than good, but I got lucky with my property management company, with meeting folks that not even just through real estate or through intention, but seeing where was I going with that? Like making connections kind of where there shouldn't be any.
Right. But again, you bring that back, Adam, to, you've been to these meetups and you've seen the people that show up at the meetup, and they're there every week. They're there at every meeting, and all they have is the same questions they had at the last meeting. They're just looking for a new person to ask the questions of. When I go to a meetup, I look at who's there from last time and see if they've done something since last time. Sam Martin is the same way. Sam is, between meetings, he's done something. He's done something. And so when you go to these meetings, you see those that keep going to the meeting, but they're just there because they won't jump in. They won't do something. So when you come to me, or you want to talk with someone like myself that's been where you're at and is beyond that point, and we talk to you once, and you come back and you talk to us again, and you've done something. You've moved from the part you were last time, and you've shown that I'm not going to just have another 20-minute conversation with somebody, that I'm going to have another 20-minute conversation with somebody, and it's going to be like Groundhog's Day, because there's no activity. What I can see, and what I have seen in you and several people in these particular meetups, is there's activity. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of networking. And so you keep referring to it as luck. I'm going to tell you, my friend, it's not luck. It's the magnetism that energy creates. Because when I go into the meeting, I'm in there about 8 minutes, and I can tell you who's doing and who's in there stewing. They're trying to figure out what to do. They like the idea, but maybe a little bit more money of this, or maybe a little bit more connection of that, or maybe the market's got to take a dip. There's always a reason why they're not going to do something. But when you find somebody that's done, it's not a ready, fire, aim scenario. It's a ready, aim, fire. It's not a ready, aim, readjust, aim, readjust. There's progress. And so I see that with you, and that's where I'm not calling it luck.
Well, luck is what's the other platitude that I hear is luck is the combination of preparation and timing.
There you go. I like that. I'll give you that for luck.
So it's not ready, fire, aim, but the people that are still aiming doesn't mean they're not doing anything. And again, I look back at what I was doing in 2008, 9, 10. I was probably asking the same questions. I was doing that. I was going to these meetings going like, I haven't done anything since then. My first dollar I made in real estate was actually a tax lien. I made $14. But it was,
you know what though?
I only invested 100. So
that's a 14% return. How long did that take you?
A year.
So it took you 12 months. So you made 14%.
Right. And it was actually Florida. Go figure. But like that was doing something. I was doing something.
That's right.
I don't want to discount the people that are just now getting into it. Granted, you always see more people get into it in an up market because now, oh, it's so easy to sell a house right now. It's like, yeah, because it's 2007 or it's 2006 or something like that.
Right.
It's easy to sell a house. It's easy to be a real estate agent. But there's no one single way to do real estate. There's not. There's not like, as much as the gurus like to say, there's colleges and classes you can take on real estate. It's not like chemistry where A plus B always equals C.
Right.
And so there's ways to be creative in any market. And so I don't want to discount the people that are going every time, that are just learning about this.
No, and I'm not trying to discount. I'm trying to credit you. And so you've gone from 1 to 3, and now because of what people see you doing, because of the activity that breeds activity, you're now going on to multiples. You're going on to double-digit units. You're doing some bigger things. You're involving partnerships. Tell us how you got from the triplex. Now you're stringing up partnerships and you're putting together double-digit numbers. I mean, that's quite the growth from 2011.
Oh, for sure. But it's more of that hockey stick growth. Because all that stuff, all this multiple units, these multiple properties, I'm sitting in this duplex that just bought about a month, 2 months ago now. Owner occupied, it's anyway. But that's and you say I'm not giving myself enough credit. What I want to see more in a lot of these podcasts, and there's a great house hacking podcast that's out there right now. A guy just started. He's just doing a really drilling down on what house hacking is, and to give examples of it.
It's funny, Adam. You were the first one to tell me that term, house hacking, and when you told me, I said, what is house hacking? And you said, well, it's where you buy a duplex and you live in one side, or you buy a house and you rent out the other 2 rooms. And I got to tell you, when I was your age, that wasn't called house hacking. That was called being broke, because that's just what we did. But you guys gave it a cool term. So now it sounds like, man, you guys are house hacking. That's really neat. But the concept is so elementary. I mean, it really is. You're getting somebody else to pay your way or a portion of your share that makes it more efficient for you. And it goes back to Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, where you're turning what should be a liability, your own personal residence should be a liability according to Kiyosaki's definition. You've turned that into an asset because you've got somebody else paying for half of it or 3/4 of it or all of it. So that's, I mean,
Right.
you're doing it by the numbers. I mean, yes, there are multiple ways to do it. You're doing it 1-3-2. Some people do it 1-1-1, house at a time. But yeah, you've really done quite a bit there. So tell us what you're looking at in your future, Adam.
Well, future goal depends on how far out you want to look. With real estate, you're right. Having assets pay for other assets, making your money work for you, not just trading hours for dollars. All of these other platitudes that I learned through listening to the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Brandon Turners and all these other folks. I'm not looking to be the next, real estate mogul. I just want to not have to show up to an office every day to make money.
Right.
I want to, I don't want to not work because I'm always going to do something,
Right.
Whether it's in music, whether it's in brewing, whether it's in real estate. I'm always going to be working, but I'm not, I want to be able to make money from wherever I happen to be. And so, real estate seemed like the easy is relative, but seemed the best, seemed the best path forward. A lot of people, they do other things. They start businesses. They invest in the stock market. I found out the stock market isn't for me. I know people that do Forex trading. I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do it. Whatever people find. I'm looking to have at most 40 to 70 doors. It sounds like a lot when you're at like one house, but when you're building 190 unit apartment complexes every other week, 70 doesn't sound like many.
Not every other week, my friend. Those take a couple of years, but so what does your 2020 goal look like? I mean, so if we follow you, I mean, in 2011 you bought your first one. It sounds like you're up to 6 now in 2020 at the beginning.
I've got 5
because I 5.
sold the one in Portland.
Okay.
Refinanced it, bought the triplex, sold it, bought this duplex.
Okay. So you're 5 doors. What's your 2020 count?
2020 will be hopefully about 10.
Okay.
And because I've got I've kind of started niching myself down into some of these infill lot splits
Right.
that I'm finding all over the Treasure Valley. And that's why I bought the duplex that I'm in. A, owner occupied financing. B, we're actually going to Airbnb out the other side.
Okay.
Because who wants full-time neighbors?
Right.
But it sits on a half acre, and so I can actually develop the back side of it. And so,
excellent.
But that's a new adventure. That's a new adventure for me as far as building new. But I don't have to know everything about it because I can meet people that do know everything about it that are already specialized in it, and leverage your network that way. And so hopefully I can, that's another 2 units. My neighbors actually also have a very similar layout. So if I can, and they're not owner occupied, so I'm going to try to market that tree, see if I can get those under contract. Doing some of these partner deals that I've, fallen into really, but part of that again is planning and timing.
Yeah.
Being able to recognize that those are, you can bang your head against the wall, but you need to know that a door sounds different banging your head against it than a wall does.
Right.
If you're going to try to break through a wall, don't try to do it at a stud.
Wise knowledge.
But you're still banging your head against a wall. So, some days it seems like that. Some, especially when you're dealing with the city. But there is still, as long as you're not trying to do the same thing over and over again, and not making progress, you are still doing something. So yeah, into 2020, I'd like to have, nearing on 10 doors, whether I am or not. I mean, my 2018 18 goal was to find a multifamily to invest in. I closed on that one in the March of 2019. So I was a few months behind. My 2019 goal was to move out here to Boise and then get into a place. Again, didn't quite close on it in 2019, but didn't close in January 2020. So I'm getting better.
Yeah, well, the other thing too, though, that I've heard said before, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it says, a goal that's not written down is just a wish, right? And so the fact that you're writing it down and holding yourself accountable, it's okay to be a little bit late to the goal, but you're still getting it checked off, So Adam,
Body talks about that being it's not a goal, it's a commitment.
Yeah.
And making a commitment to yourself. I mean, if you miss the goal, it's like, I'll just try again. Right. But if you make a commitment to it, it's like, no, like, okay, I missed that time, but I have to keep going at it because I made a commitment to actually accomplish that task.
Right. So if Adam, one final question, if you could look back at Adam in 2011 and you could give him one piece of advice, knowing where you've come from, no formal training, some free seminars, a college kid, no with good credit, but no real cash flow, to where you are now, what kind of advice would you give that young man in 2011?
Real estate wise.
Let's keep it within the hour. Okay. Let's just go with real estate.
Real estate wise, there's a couple of women I would advise myself against, but
we're gonna have to cut that out of the.
Okay. I think the advice that I would give myself is to, I don't know. I like what I did because it got me where I'm at. I think that understanding financials more would have been a lot better because I could have leveraged myself a little bit better back then, and because I could have brought in partners. I could have understood some of that a little bit better. It's like, hey, getting some deals under contract. There was a bunch of opportunities for wholesaling back then, which I didn't. We kind of talked about a little bit. There's always different strategies that I could have implemented that I didn't, for various other reasons. I mean,
So basically, if I hear you correctly, you would have told yourself to jump in with both feet sooner than you did because of the success you had. You could have improved that by giving it more attention. Is that? Am I putting words in your mouth, Adam, or is that kind of what you're saying?
It's the benefit of hindsight.
Well, of course it is. That's why you mentioned those ladies.
Right. So it's not that I actually wouldn't say jump in with both feet. And the reason I say that, even though it in hindsight, it looks like, oh yeah, you should have jumped in with both feet. You also run the risk of really screwing yourself over. And I didn't have the experience back then. And if I would just give myself that one piece of advice, hey, jump in with both feet. Right. I hear that all the time. Like, I know you're a fan of Grant Cardone. Personally, I'm not. His 10X mentality is great, but just like if you're running downhill, if you can't keep your feet under, you're just going to fall down.
Sure.
And then you're tumbling downhill, and it's a recipe for disaster. And so I don't got all my ums and ahs. I don't think that the path forward has to be a sprint. Right. So keeping your feet under you, keeping a good base, keeping not pulling the trigger before you're ready, I think is still very smart. Everyone has their own pace on it. Some people, I was talking to folks, I know them now, they're 19 and they have 20 doors already. And it's like, okay, what the hell? Why didn't I do that? Right. As good as I did and as lucky as I got, there are people that are 100 times more than that, or 10x more than that, wherever they are, wherever they started. There's kids on bigger pockets. I'm 18. How do I get started in real estate? You know, but with just a small loan of $1 million from their parents, they were able to
Right.
now put it into $100 million or whatever.
Sure.
It's like, I don't think if I were to give myself advice from back then that I would do it any different, because I think that process is necessary.
Sure.
I think you have to go through the steps, even though there isn't a set pathway. Doing things before your due time, before you're ready for it. There are opportunities I passed up that I could have made, a boatload of money. That I also could have fallen on my face, or
Right.
shot myself in the foot, or embarrassed myself in front of these people that I didn't get blacklisted, or it's like, this guy doesn't know anything. You make a first impression, and if it's a poor one, or you can't follow through with what we're trying to say. I'm big on integrity. If you say you're going to do something, I expect you to do it. If I can't do it, I'm not going to promise it.
Right.
And so if I were to have made all these wild promises and then been able to follow through on them, that's great. And I would have been 10 times where I'm at today.
Right.
But if I would have fallen on my face, I wouldn't be where I'm at today.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, as far as the
And that's
advice.
great advice. That's great advice. Basically, everybody's got their own pace, and everybody's got their own lessons they're going to learn, and everybody processes that information differently. But Adam, once again, I do want to congratulate you on the success you've had, and really, I like that other definition that you had about planning and timing and activity. That I really think that that's the kind of luck that you exude, you attract. It's been great to get to know you on this show a little bit more, and I thank you for your insight. I also want to encourage you to continue to push yourself to grow, because I really see that you're taking it at your pace, and you're doing it right because you're doing it your way and you're learning. I see that you're taking all the information and you're putting it into your own book. You're rewriting it the way you hear it, and you're doing it your way, which is really important. And this is one of the awesome things that I see in real estate, is because you can, like you said earlier, you can do it any way you want. There's no set way to do it. But I really want to give you props for what you're doing, and congratulate you. I also want to thank you for taking the time to be on the Real Estate Rundown. And we look forward to talking with you more in the future. Thanks again, Adam.